Hello and welcome to Patron Saints of Pop Culture. As always, I am your co-saint, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I am Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's finally talk about This Is Us, Season 2.
Spoiler alert, if you have not watched this cathartic season all the way through and cried your eyes out like most people, me included, we will be talking about the entire season, so this is your chance to go watch that. It will probably be on Hulu, is where we watched it. If NBC.com has a streaming thing, then there too, I guess, as well.
We're not sure if it exists or not, but we're gonna...
Yeah, we'll plug it. So, our review and summary. This season kind of went everywhere. We did kind of find out what happened with Jack's death. We find out it was not immediately following the episode where he was drunk and hit the band leader guy who was kind of hitting on Rebecca. And let's see, what else did we find out this season? It's kind of hard to kind of summarize because a lot happened.
Yeah.
The Pearson Big Three go through a lot of changes in life and learn about moving on. There we go. There's a summary.
I would say that this season is about them honestly finally dealing with the death of their father. Well, fathers in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah, I did like season 2. I didn't think that it was as impactful as season 1, but then again, season 1 was kind of like a out of nowhere kind of thing that you can't really capture the same lightning in a bottle. But it was good. It's like Parenthood. Parenthood was a fantastic television show, and so I think that all seasons had their ups and downs, and I think that This Is Us will probably find that same stride that Parenthood did.
Yes, I agree. I really like This Is Us. When we were watching some recap videos of it on YouTube, one of the videos mentioned how, actually the producers had said how there's not too many hopeful shows out there. And I agree. I mean, yes, they do struggle, but really there is still hope that they can get through the troubles and the struggles that they have, which I think is one of the reasons why so many people like to watch it, is because there's not too many episodes or shows out there that you can watch and feel good at the end of the show. Well,
I mean, most of the time they will rip your heart out and then make you feel a little bit better at the end of the show.
Exactly. Yep. You'll cry, but it's not too sad of a cry.
Yeah, it's a catharsis.
Yes.
I really want to focus on Randall this season because Randall really is the character that I resonate with the most. I think that kind of where Randall is kind of me in a lot of ways. Because Randall is going through that transition from being living his dream job. He's in his dream job, and then he transitions out of that and into being a different member of society, and being, outside of that is really tough for him. And you see him kind of struggle through this in the beginning part of the season. You find him struggling through kind of transitioning out of being a son to a biological father that he didn't really know existed until he found him. You see him kind of really kind of struggle through that transition, and I really think that in itself is something that I'm going to talk about here in a second, but is very much me. And the reason why I wanted to talk a little bit about his character and his character arc throughout the season is because it very much resonates with me and my own life and where I'm going.
Yeah.
I called this honoring double because this past week, Kathy found a Kickstarter campaign for this children's book author who put out this book called Not Half But Double. And it's a book about children who are biracial, who are, instead of you're not half something, you're double something. Where I'm guessing she found it because he's from Montana. And so that's probably why.
Because all us Montanans know each other in some weird way, or we only have like 2 degrees of separation from each other.
Well, when I moved to Montana, they told me that it's just kind of like a small city, but with a very, very long main street.
Yes.
So there are more cows in Montana than there are people. So
there's more deer in Montana than there are people.
Yeah. Which is probably why there are a lot of cults out there, but that's a different story for a different day.
Hey, not in Billings. More out west.
Okay. I think that one of Randall's biggest points throughout this entire season is trying to remember both of his fathers, is trying to honor them in the best way that he can. And as we talked about in our Coco episode, is that remembering someone and their stories is very important. It's very important to kind of have them live on through those stories and through not being forgotten. Randall is struggling with honoring both of his fathers. You see this in his sort of solo episodes. There was that episode of each of the big three getting their own solo episode of what happened on their side of the story for Kevin's big end of football career.
Yep.
And for Randall, I think that was his instance of where he was going to remember his father, his adopted father, and in him saying that, look, no matter what, you're always going to fit in here. That nobody really feels like they belong anywhere, but with me, that you will always fit in, that you are my son. And I think that was essential for his character arc throughout this entire season, because it's him trying to find his new place in the world. This comes about with a few episodes later when he purchases the building, when he decides this is what he's going to do for his new career. It's going to be fixing this building up, making sure that people have affordable and decent living space, which I think is not something that a whole lot of people in our world do.
Oh, no.
You have people who are like, oh, yeah, I'm going to make tons of money off of my building and apartments, and, I'll hire a super to do whatever. And they're just run down apartments, and they're never going to get any better.
And they're super expensive, and especially the past couple of, I would say, last 10 years, the cost of rent has it's ridiculous.
Well, especially in New York, you had a whole meme started from that guy who was running on that one party. That rent is too hot. It was too high in New York.
Yep.
Who wore his gloves and his fantastic mustache. And I think this is something that I think Randall knows. Randall knows about his anxiety pretty well, and you saw it that it was something that he struggled with since teenagerhood. That in season 1, it began when he had breakdowns with his anxiety and his panic attacks.
Yep.
And I think this is a great season that showed his progress through that. Which, for instance, the Las Vegas episode is where you see him that, he's on vacation, or at least he's trying to be on vacation in Las Vegas, and he keeps worrying about Deja. And this worrying, you could see that he's not fully there. He's worrying that something happened, and which we find out that it did, but, there's nothing that they could have done to prevent that or to have been better about making sure that was okay by being there. And I mean, for me, this is something that I've never really had that big of a chance to be able to be on vacation because of my anxiety and because of me being a youth minister before,
I can attest to really attest to this.
I was never able to be there fully present in the moment because I was always concerned that the kids that I cared about were taken care of, the things that I knew were happening with them or with the church back home, that I was always with them. And even when I did go on vacation, like at Christmas time when we went to see my family, I think the first time where I was able to say, kind of put myself aside and say, I'm going to do me. I'm going to be here, going to be present in this moment. I'm going to do what I want to do because I don't need to worry so much about everyone else and how everyone else is being taken care of, because that's not really my problem. My problem is me. Mm-hmm. And I need to take care of me and my family.
And luckily you have a job now to where you don't have to worry about getting a ton of emails like while you're on vacation.
I think I still did, but it was a bunch of those I need a supervisor emails that we end up getting that are like, they end up being these huge email threads that people just keep replying all to for no reason.
Yeah, it gets out of control sometimes, but
and I think this is essential to the whole season because it is showing Randall's transition from being just this person who was letting the weight of the world affect him, letting the weight of the world kind of pile on top of him. And now it was him trying to figure out how to impact his world around him. And it was by taking Deja in. And we know that that's going to be a big sticking point here at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. We saw that flash forward with him talking to his daughter and saying, let's go see. I don't want to go see her. Neither do I, but we have to. Which you don't know who they're referring to with her because they're playing the pronoun game.
Yeah.
And because nobody really does that in real life, but they're doing it to create a cliffhanger for the end of the season.
Yeah, I'm convinced that they want us to think it's Deja, but it's really not Deja.
Well, they also, people are also speculating that it's Beth, that it's her grave or something, that going to go visit her in a mental institution or something like this, that, it's really one of those things that I think that we're not meant to know yet. And it's also like, it could be anything. It could be visiting Deja, at her new job, which is she's always busy and she doesn't really have time for them. And so she doesn't really pay attention to them. And so it's just an awkward conversation.
Well, the reason why they're doing this, though, is because the whole thing before was, how does Jack die? How does Jack die? Like, we knew he died, but we don't know how.
Yeah.
And so now they have to create another, who is she?
The mystery box.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, they have a new mystery box for us.
And I really think that, I love Randall so much because he reminds me so much of myself, that finding himself after this transition of being a son to William and finding out about William's life and remembering William and remembering Jack and remembering just moving on with his life and moving on through this remembrance and making sure that his life in his own way will honor them. And I think this is something that we can learn so much from Randall about, is that he takes ownership of what he is. He takes ownership of who he is. Mm-hmm. And he even takes ownership of the fact that he doesn't know how to struggle with whatever it is. He doesn't know how to struggle with these things, and he will own up to it.
Yep.
And, he, in his interactions with Beth, is being honest with her. And I love their little game of saying exactly what they fear, because it does come out extremely ridiculous, which is supposed to be. And I think this is something that is very helpful for those of us who have anxiety, in especially acknowledging those things that we know aren't going to happen, mm-hmm. but we're still afraid of it because we have anxiety. And, it's, I think his own way of transitioning from that place of grief into a place of acceptance and of using it to make his life a better place.
Yeah, exactly. And so now I guess we're going to talk a little bit about some more about letting go, which was a big theme in the whole season. And I kind of want to focus first a little bit about Kate, since this was kind of like her time to shine, I guess, with her wedding at the end. And sometimes you do have to let go just a little. Like, you don't have to let go completely. Like, she doesn't need to forget her dad, but she finally realizes that she needs to at least let him, take a side seat, to step back a little bit so then she can make room for, her new love, her new partner in crime. Mm-hmm. She, I think part of it, the reason why she still like holds on to Jack's death is because she still blames herself for it, because, it was her dog who he went to go in and rescue in the fire. But we all know that that's ridiculous. Like, it was nobody's fault. In fact, it was Crock-Pot's fault for making it faulty.
Well, it wasn't the Crock-Pot. Let's make that clear, because they had a big issue with it with the producers and everything else. But
they actually made social media accounts to combat it.
It was those who sell their faulty Crock-Pots to families who need a Crock-Pot, and knowing it's faulty.
Yep. So don't give away faulty Crock-Pots is what the story boils down to. No,
yes, there you go. Either get it fixed first or
just throw it away.
Yes.
Yep. Anyway, sorry we got off on a tangent with Crock-Pot. We love our Crock-Pot, by the way, makers of Crock-Pot, if you're listening to this episode right now.
We need a new one.
We do need a new one, but it's not faulty. And again, I just want to make sure that I want to emphasize that Kate, in the actions of what she was doing before her wedding, she was still letting go, but she clearly is not forgetting. A lot of people try to equate letting go to forgetting, but that's not the case at all. What she's trying to do essentially is trying to free herself from the extra weight and the guilt and the loneliness that her father's death created. Mm-hmm. And she's held on to it for so long. And she finally has somebody who is telling her that it's okay to have those feelings. Absolutely. But at a certain point in time, you got to do something else. You got to try to move on just a little bit, to let some extra space in for other things. And Toby wanted to be that extra thing, I guess, in her life. Mm-hmm. And as I said, it's not just for grief. Obviously, in the show it is primarily, but I mean, this goes for grudges, for hurt, for all negative feelings, really. It's so hard for us to actually let go of those things because hurt is a very, very powerful emotion.
Well, and as we talked about in our own conversation about This Is Us, Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot episode, mm-hmm. We talked about our own struggle with our miscarriages, and Kate even had her own through this season.
Yeah.
Which, be like, hey, writers, could have given us a little credit, but, we're not the only ones who struggle with this. And we found out that it was a much more common issue when we went through it. And, I think this is something for her that she needed to realize, something that she can move on.
Yeah.
So.
And I do have to say, going back to that episode, I am really pleased to see the type of support that she got, because in our story and in so many other stories about miscarriage, that's not the case. Like,
Yeah.
in fact, you hear people like, why don't you get over it? Like, I don't understand why you're sad. Like, it's not like you really lost a baby. Like, phrases like that are really what's pushed around. But her family, like, really rallied for her. I mean, her mom visited her, like, got on a plane and visited her. And that was powerful. I mean, yes, I talked on the phone with my mom when they happened and I cried with her. But really, I think I would have healed a lot faster if somebody had taken the time to actually visit us and to comfort us in person.
Yeah.
Because we really didn't get that.
No.
At all.
No, we have this thing of where we end up struggling a lot on our own without a whole lot of outside help. Mm-hmm. Which I think on one hand, it does make us stronger and it does make us, closer because we are our own support system. But, this is the great thing about the show is that this show kind of represents the ideal for what a family should be.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the great things about pop culture things is that they can mirror what our own ideals for what it should be and how to best deal with some of these things. Like, yeah. So, and I'm going to stop talking.
Okay, that's good. That's perfect. And I think at the very end, with Kate kind of having a little bit of a meltdown with her dad's shirt not being there, and Toby panicking because he felt like that he like failed her in a way. I mean, they still worked it out in the end, but I think she realized that it's hard to be happy when you are forcing yourself to remember the hurt. Mm-hmm. And she was. I mean, she talks about how she has this dream about how they're doing a marriage vow, whatever.
Reaffirming of vows.
Yeah. For her parents instead of her wedding. And a lot of the stuff is involved in the wedding is to honor her father. Yeah. And I think she's realizing that her life isn't going to be revolving around her father's death anymore. Now she's going to have Toby. Mm-hmm. And which is not a bad thing.
Which she's going to have to work pretty hard in the next... I mean, I don't even know if this is going to be the next season or not, where it looks like Toby has his own meltdown.
Yeah, that's going to be tough to watch, I feel, for me.
Gee, flashbacks.
That's all right. It's okay. I mean, the one great thing about the show is that it imitates real life. So that's why we love it so much. And then Kevin, I have so many feelings about Kevin.
So you would say that we need to talk about Kevin? Sorry.
I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen. So
Kevin can wait. Sorry. Okay, go on. Sorry.
Anyway, sir, if you'll let me continue. Well, Kevin, out of all of them, the reason why he dives into like his drinking problem and the downward spiral is because Kate is knowing, like, trying to push him to like deal with the death of his father finally, and for the longest time he's been able to run away. That's what he does. He after the death of his father, he like really clung to his girlfriend. Then he ran away to Hollywood, and he's one of those people, and it's not necessarily a bad trait, but he's one of those people that has to have their thing, like has to like have a strong focus on something, and like that's like it's all consuming in his life, which can, for most things it's good, but sometimes it gets out of control, and especially if you're trying to hold on tight to that one thing because you're trying to run away from something else, is where the problem lies. And he can't let go of his grief because he hasn't processed it yet. Like he hasn't. Like he hasn't actually dealt with his father's death until like the wedding came up. Mm-hmm. You know, like we see him like going to like their tree and having a conversation with his dad, and like I don't know, I kind of get what Kevin is going through, because I too am a child of an addict, and but I think we went down different paths. Like I was able to like look at the warning signs of addiction, and I know what I need to do to make sure that I don't become an addict, because statistically I have a higher chance of becoming an addict simply because a parent is.
Yeah.
Where Kevin, on the other hand, like I think his mom was really good about maybe downplaying that, because it's not really mentioned all that much. You know, like the kids hold their father in such high esteem that they don't ever talk about the bad things about Jack. I mean, there wasn't too many bad things. You know, he was a great guy, but I mean, alcoholism is definitely one of his struggles and should be talked about in families.
Exactly. And I mean, there on subreddits and other places on the internet where people discuss This Is Us, there are whole kind of conversations around how Jack may be perfect, but he's not all perfect. And, you know, like talking about the addictions and stuff like this. But I'm like, well, he's a fictional character for one.
Yeah.
For two, I mean, he did struggle with a few things, and everyone struggles. And that's the thing, is that nobody is perfect. Everyone struggles.
But that's the thing when somebody passes away. Like, we tend to
put them on the pedestal and elevate their status of hopefully remembering the good things and not just the bad things.
Yeah. But I think Toby kind of brings it up sometimes too. He was like, your father sounded like this superhero guy, you know? Like, and you know, I don't.
Well, he was, but that's a different show.
And but I feel when somebody passes away, it is good to talk about some of their major faults, because not only can we learn from the good things that they did, but we can definitely learn from the bad things that they did as well too, or their struggles, I should say, not necessarily the bad things, but the struggles that they had. And I'm just happy that Kevin, I feel, has finally gotten to the point to where now that he's recognized how he feels about his father's death, he can finally start to take that breath, exhale, and just go on with life.
Yeah, and start making something of himself rather than running from his past.
Because when you run from your past, when you run from things that are negative, it only gets worse, and that's a clear case in Kevin's life. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you had that whole episode where you're kind of like, man, Kevin, you're ragging on your old family because it's got to be all about Kevin for you, and yep,
I know. But again, that's a very real humanistic thing that we all go through. Like like how many times? I mean, everybody in their life has had one outburst to where they're just like, I am so sick of everybody else getting attention. Like I've been having problems too, and nobody's been noticing me. But then again, when did you bring up your problems to somebody? Yeah. When did you say, hey, I'm having issues. Can someone please help me figure this out? Which Kevin did, but I think he got a little sheepish when he found out that Kate had a miscarriage when he went to go tell Randall that he had a problem. Yeah. And instead of just saying, okay, I still got to say it, like this is still important, he just stepped back and like
ran away.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So what are the principles that we can pull away from This Is Us in season 2? First, I would say that moving on is the big theme of this season. I think is how how the characters move on with their grief and move on with their lives. And whereas the first season was kind of the introduction to the Pearsons and who they are, and which is something that I loved. I love that they spent an entire season introducing the characters rather than just, trying to fit a theme in there as well.
Yeah.
Whereas, I think the whole thing was each episode could have its own theme in the first season, and then the second season, they had that long-running theme where each episode kind of adds to that full theme, which I think they did. I think they did a fantastic job on this, and the big theme was moving on. Is how do you move on with your life after a big event like this? Mm-hmm. We saw this especially in the episode of Jack's funeral, and Rebecca's dealing with everything after the funeral, and with Dr. K again, which
gosh, every time
I love Dr. K.
Yeah, every time I see him, I tear up a little bit because I'm like, oh, I need that kind of a person in my life that just randomly shows up and gives me good advice.
Yeah, a spirit guide. So Dr. K is the spirit guide for all of us. Not only that, we also see Randall with honoring both of his lives, both his life as William's son and his life as Jack's son. And for me, that was big. And I think this is something that, especially those who are biracial like me, is that, I struggle with honoring both sides of myself, with honoring my Mexican side, honoring my white side, and honoring, what my mom's family did and what my dad's family did, and just, how those things came together to make me. And I think that we learn a bit about that from Randall. We see that in struggling with anxiety and struggling with his own kind of Randallness throughout this.
But ultimately, like what he decided to do, buying that building, he is honoring both parents because one, he's fixing up the building, which is very much Jack with construction. And two, I mean, you could tell that the people who lived in there really, really loved William, and William was a big part of this community. So it's just a perfect mesh of the two.
Yeah. And another principle that I think we can pull from this is that you can have a show with very real characters. Mm-hmm. That it doesn't have to be a completely, like two-dimensional characters. Each of these characters is very three-dimensional. They have their wants, they have their desires. They make stupid decisions too. Like Kevin's stupid decisions.
Yep.
And the fact that they still accepted and loved Kevin at the end of the episode. They were kind of, and granted, this doesn't happen with us in real lives because we hold grudges. Yeah. But that I think that Kevin held a grudge throughout his entire life towards the rest of his family because of these things, and we can see that was just silly, and we can see Kate struggling with her weight and with the miscarriage and thinking that she was to blame for this when nobody's really to blame for that. Mm-hmm. And all of these different things that they show in this series, which I think is fantastic, is showing that people can be real, that you can be real. And so this is something that I think that the producers and the writers and the showrunners have done an excellent job with. And I think that everybody can pull away from this is that it's okay to be real. It's okay to be who you are. It's okay to struggle and move on and to be real with your struggle and to get help when you need help.
Yep, absolutely.
So, yes, now to wrap this all up afterwards, we have a few things coming up, which I don't know that we're going to be getting to them in this order, but this is what's coming up. Next week, we should be doing A Wrinkle in Time. We're going to probably go see that in the morning and then come do an episode fresh off of watching A Wrinkle in Time. So it will be Easter Sunday. So, hopefully nobody's going to the movies on Easter Sunday. Why would they do that?
Except for us.
Except for us. After that, I have here on the list is Series of Unfortunate Events, Season 2. I don't think we did season 1 because it was a little too depressing for us.
But we've done plenty of depressing episodes since then,
yes,
so why not?
Exactly. And now it's just kind of a running joke. We're just going to put Black Mirror in week 3 because,
we'll just keep pushing it off.
We'll just keep pushing it off. Eventually we'll get to that episode, that bleak episode of Crocodile, which, ugh.
And there's a series on Netflix. I won't mention it because Miguel wants to keep it to us, apparently, that I've been trying to get him to do an episode on.
I don't want to overanalyze it. It's hilarious as it is. I don't want to overanalyze it so that I'm going to be like, oh, it's not funny anymore. Which is, like, this happened with How I Met Your Mother. As soon as I started analyzing the show, I hate it. I cannot watch that show anymore because each of the characters have become like real, and it's like, ugh, they're not good people at all.
Yeah, it doesn't age well.
No, like Barney Stinson, like, honestly, like, once you boil him down to who he actually is, he's gross. He's disgusting. You don't have anything to do with that guy.
Yeah, I know. Even Lily has her faults too, which...
Yeah, there's like... Once you start analyzing something, it really gets away from you.
What about The Office?
This Is Us. I think we're doing a fantastic job of being able to pull out some and not really analyze it fully. Where you stopped me from doing the whole, we're going to talk about every single episode, and I think that was good because that kind of kept us more distanced from analyzing every single little thing about them.
Well, I think too, though, with a series like This Is Us, it's okay to analyze it a little bit more in depth because there is so much to it.
Yeah.
It's impossible to get every little nuance because it's a sandwich full of emotion and themes and life lessons. Well,
and that's the thing is that, you can even go back to our, The Good Place episodes. Mm-hmm. Is that I think that's the only sitcom that is able to carry a full weight within itself. Mm-hmm. That you can analyze it, and it's still going to be funny.
Yep.
Whereas some other things, some other sitcoms are just they don't carry a whole lot of weight. They're just sitcoms, surface level stuff. So
anyway,
that's why. Anyway,
now that you've heard us ramble.
Come find us on social media. If you have anything to say about our previous episodes or about these upcoming episodes, please give us a call or send us a text at 720-372-3879. If you leave us a voicemail, we can actually use your voice on a future episode, which would be great. We would love to do a future episode of us kind of reaffirming some of the conversations that we had from previous episodes. Mm-hmm. So, let's have a conversation. And you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Reddit. On Facebook, we are facebook.com/realhonestfaith. We don't get any of your information or data from Facebook, so don't have to worry about that and all of that other stuff. I know there are a few people who are now leaving Facebook because of the data breach, but to be honest, you kind of knew that when you signed up for Facebook, I guess.
Yeah, my whole thing is, if they have my info, they already have my info. Me leaving is not going to change that.
Yeah.
But that's just my own thing.
You can find us on Twitter. We each have our own personal accounts. We also have the Real Honest Faith account, which also kind of plugs all of our stuff, our episodes and my blog posts and everything else. That's Real Honest Faith on Twitter. Reddit, on Tumblr. These are the things that you can also find us on. Find us on our own website at thehonestfaith.com, and you can even buy my book. In fact, next week, I will be releasing my second book, which is my adaptation of the book of Luke into a modern retelling of the story. And I've got the cover art up on our Facebook page and on our Twitter, so you can check that out and let me know what you think.
Yeah.
Anyway, my second book will be released next week, and you'll be able to purchase that as well on our website. And so, with all of that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.